off. Flying through the hallway like a disco moth. Pitching to the couch, then I loop through the fan. My tiny whoops grooving like a funky jam. I dip through the doorway, spin by the cab, bounce off the toaster, yeah, I meant to do that. Neighbors knocking, saying, what's that sound? It's my brush motor soul train getting down. Flying through curtain, dancing on breeze, freestyle funk in my living room with ease. Tiny whoop magic, bumping every wall. I'm the James Brown of flight, can't stop it all. I got LED strobes and a shag rug trail. I'm looping through the lava lamp, leaving a tail. My whoops got rhythm, my sticks got soul. I'm the pilot of the party. On a roll, TV remotes a gate, the lamps a dive. I'm flying like it's 7.5. No GPS, no rules, no shame. Just a funky little quad in a soul train frame. Move it low, move it low. We fly that flow, move it low. Grab that gap, no time to nap, no time to nap. Hit that roll, funk and control, funk and control. Bounce that wall, bounce that all. We fly it all, funk it all. We fly it all. Tiny whoop love, funky and free. We fly indoors, we fly with glee. Whoop it, loop it, groove it, move it, bounce it, flip it, funk it, rip it, fly that soul, don't lose control. Tiny whoop love gonna make you whole. I thread the needle through the vinyl stacks, bounce off the mirror ball, never looking back. My quad's got soul, it's got style, it's got sass. It dips through the incense like a blast from the past. I'm flying figure eights through the lava lamp glow, dodging house plants like a funky pro. My whoops got rhythm, my sticks got heat. I'm the pilot of the party with the grooviest beat. I loop through the hallway, I dive by the broom. I'm the disco ghost in your living room. I hit that split that's over grandma's chair. She just claps and says, boy, you got flair. I'm flying freestyle with a velvet touch. My quad so smooth it don't need a clutch. From the shag rug to the ceiling fan, I'm the funky little fly with a master plan. The curtains dancing on the breeze, freestyle funk in my living room with ease. Tiny whoop magic bumping every wall. I'm the James Brown of flight, can't stop at all. Can't stop at all. Can't stop at all.
Greetings, cretins. My name's Aaron Ciotti. Everybody calls me Ciotti. Welcome to Sunday Q&A. We're taking a look at the Kayoumini versus Baby Turtles versus the Maxx M2 today. You were just watching a 2-inch Baby Turtle. That was this is my analog build. This is the V7, Baby Turtle V7 analog setup. Happy Model X12 AIO. T-motor, 1002, 18,000 kV motors, motor limited down to 75%, which is a bit far. Typically, you don't want to motor limit down beyond like 90, maybe 85, at the most like 80. I mean, it depends. The more you motor limit down, the more efficiency losses. On one hand, buy one extra battery, and that'll give you, another 2.5, 3.5 minutes of runtime. That'll easily offset the 15 or 20 seconds that you lose, even motor limiting down significantly. So, maybe whatever. The massive positive of having motors that are too high of a kV is that if you want to run a propeller that's lower pitch, you can, and you can still get a bunch of power out of it. So there's that. But yeah, I had these motors floating around, which is why I'm using them. Gemfan 2015 biblades. These are amazing. What's the camera? Is it a Caddx Ant? It's a Caddx Ant Light camera. Baby Turtle 2-inch V7 frame. BT 3.0 with Tiny Whoop 300 mAh 2S batteries. These little guys with the BT 3.0 leads. Flies just awesome. I don't fly this thing enough. It's absolutely criminal. It's so much fun. I've got the most recent thing I did is finally figure out how to get the thing from slapping the carbon down on the ground when I land. These are the foam landing feet cut in quarters. So you can buy these sheets, and then you cut it once down the middle, and then you cut it in the middle again. So this is it halved. I will then cut this in half again. And then you take an itty bitty zip tie and you zip tie it down, and it gives you 4 little landing fetuses, which works shockingly well. It's a lot. You're strapping a bunch to the bottom of it, but it's like in the airflow, right? So like it doesn't really affect the downward airflow. What it does affect is like this cross section. So like when you're cruising really slowly, it's going to slow it down a little bit, but you know, whatever. Yeah, so today we're going to be taking a look at some of the newer open prop frames, 2-inch and 2.5-inch. I've got two. Why is everybody okay? Has nothing to do with FPV. Yeah, we're going to be taking a look at those. I got some builds coming up. I'm super excited about the Maxx frame, the Maxx Maxx M2 frame. This is actually a 2-inch frame, so this we're gonna compare to the 2-inch Baby Turtle builds that I've got right now, the V7 analog that you were just watching, and then this is the HD build that I have the 04 light in. So we'll compare the Maxx frame to these, and then we're mainly gonna compare the Kayoumini to the which is a 2.5-inch frame set up for 2.5-inch props, to the 2 Baby Turtle frames that I've got here. I have not done a 2.5-inch build yet on one of these super lightweight frames. I used to fly 2.5-inch all the time. Well, you know, it's funny. My live broadcast setup is all 2.5-inch builds, but you know, those are box frames with prop guards and whatnot. I haven't flown like open prop freestyle 2.5-inch in probably 5 or 6 years. It used to be one of my favorite prop sizes going back 7, 8, 9, 10 years ago. But back then the motors were pretty bad. Betaflight's filtering was not all that great. The frames were a mess. The props were a disaster back then. Nowadays things have gotten an awful lot better. I took a big break from micros 2019, 2020, 2021 to fly 5-inch because it just flew so much better. If you wanted to really learn how to fly well, you kind of had to, because everything was so much better. And then that led into me starting to do a lot of professional work with center whoops and 5-inch rigs. But over the last few years, everything outside of gig work has been tiny whoops, and now I'm diving back into these open prop setups, mainly because now with 04 Lite and 04 Pro, I can use these on set mainly for live broadcast stuff. So these are going to be super fun. These are going to be coming with me to all the live broadcast gigs this year, and I can send this footage into the TV truck, which will be an absolute blast. So yeah, I'm glad to be back into like the open prop world. The tiny whoops are phenomenal. What we can do with prop guarded stuff like this is absolutely absurd. And my prop guarded O4 light stuff is absolutely coming with me. I'm super excited to fly that like inside of the TV truck during the broadcasts and just like weave in and out of people. And like I brought one of the smaller ones with me to the last cycling gig of 2025. And I flew it through the triangle in the middle of the bicycles, you know, like above the crank and below the seat. There were a whole bunch of them lined up on a rack, and I was shooting the gap in that, you know, little triangle area that's like all of what, like this big. Something you can't do with anything bigger than something like this. So that was an absolute blast. As an update to last live stream, which was what, Friday? Friday we were working on a bunch of those newbie drone setups, and I gave you guys a ton of really good soldering tips. Thanks for all the super kind feedback on that. That's always awesome to read. I got a whole bunch of work done after that stream and yesterday on those newbie drone builds, and I now have 2 completed setups that are going to be for sale on Etsy. A Mosquito 2.5 inch and a Mosquito 1.6 inch, but you can put a 1.8 inch propeller on this. I just don't have any 1mm motor shaft 1.8 inch props. And so these 2 are ready to go. There's a 65mm whoop that I'm just waiting for some E6000 to cure on. And then that'll be for sale on the Etsy store as well. And then there's going to be a 1.6 inch prop whoop as well that I got to do some soldering on. And there might even be a second 1.6 inch open prop. I'm not totally sure. I might keep this as a tiny lifter to pick up the Insta360 Go 2, or I might just say to hell with it and let this go. I spent all that time doing the tiny lifter builds a few years ago to carry the Insta360 Goes around, and then I used them on set a couple times, like just sort of for fun, and then I haven't used them since. With O4 Lite and O4 Pro, it's doubtful that I'll ever really use those again. It's you know, the Insta360 Go 2 is good and all, but it's not really any better than the O4 Lite. It's certainly not better than the O4 Pro. What's nice about the Insta360 Go 2 is the software. The software is really cool, and it's a square sensor, which is really nice. But yeah, realistically, I don't know if I'm ever really going to use it. You know, the biggest problem with it is that the tiny lifters are analog, and I don't bring analog goggles to like working gigs. I'm now bringing all DJI stuff. And so it's a pretty specific kind of thing, and so that's one of the main reasons that the tiny lifters don't really get used all that much. Like, if for some reason I do have a full analog gear setup for gig work, if there's a specific reason for it, like if I don't know, I struggle to come up with reasons to fly analog when I'm working. But like, I don't know, if I have to fly somewhere that DJI doesn't work, if there's like a weird antenna pointing at the site that makes DJI black out, then yeah, analog might work, although it'll probably stomp all over analog as well. But yeah, I typically don't bring analog out other than just to fly for fun. So yeah, those, I don't even know where I put them. Yeah, these 2 are going to be popping up on Etsy. If you're absolutely desperate for one of these, just message me. CiottiFPV.com has all my contact info. Discord or Instagram are the best places to message me. My email's on there, but my email's an absolute war zone. My Facebook is on there, but boy, it is tough to justify using Facebook for anything with how evil they've become. So yeah, these are BLV3. Yeah, these are both BLV3 AIOs. Direct soldered motors, like what we were talking about last time. BT 2.0, they're both on 1S. these BLV3s perform much better on 1S. I realized the problems that I was having is that like they work on 2S, but they act very odd on 2S. So now that they're back onto 1S, they're working a lot better. So yeah, let me know if you're interested in either one of these. These aren't like shredders. These aren't rippers. This is an old AIO. These are cruisers. These are for somebody that you want to get into FPV. These are not like the peak performance of what's available nowadays. If you want to build something that performs as good as possible, these are not it. These are for fun. The prices will be lower than like when I sell a shredder build. Because, you know, these things should be used. I want these out there. I've had these for far too long just sitting on the shelf. So let's get these in the hands of somebody that can lose them on a rooftop or in the top of a tree or in a lake. Not a very kind thing to say about something you're trying to sell, but, you know, that's reality, my friends. So yeah, those are good to go, and there's 2, maybe 3 more of those newbie drone based builds on the way. I say they're newbie drone based because they've got newbie drone AIOs, motors, canopies, frames. So yeah, it's a bunch of the older newbie drone stuff that I have from way back when, all put together, ready to go. The X14 AIO'd 1.8-inch build, I am just done with this. Because it's because of propellers. This M80 or M8, whatever the hell this Happy Model 1.8-inch prop frame is fantastic. I actually love this frame. But the problem is the propellers that are available. There are 2 Gemfan 1.8-inch props available. They're very heavy and they're not very well balanced. There are 3 HQ ultralight propellers available. 1 biblade here and then 2 triblades. And they're all too fragile for a heavier 1.8-inch setup here on 2S with good power. Pretty much every single time I crash, at least 1 propeller explodes at the hub, and I have to take the walk of shame. On the most recent crash, 2 of the propellers actually exploded at once. I flew 2 batteries on this, and I had to take the walk of shame 3 times. There were 3 crashes. The first crash, the right front propeller blew up. The second crash, I forget which propeller blew up. And then the third crash, both of these propellers just disappeared. I drill these props out. I put them onto the motors with the exact right amount of pressure so that the props won't fly off. I also have them drilled out enough that I'm not pushing them onto the motors too hard. The hub of these ultralight propellers is where they fail. And it just cracks. This hub is just too small. And so what helps is if you drill the propellers out a little bit. On my Etsy store, I sell 1.47 millimeter and 0.99 millimeter drill bits. And so you take the 1.47 millimeter drill bit and you drill those propellers out a little bit. You don't want to drill them out too much because then they fly off the motor. You drill them out just the right amount, and then when you put it on the motor shaft, it's got resistance, but not too much resistance. But if you don't drill the propeller out, the motor shaft is like pushing out on that hub, and it cracks the plastic of the hub, and then they explode very easily. If you drill the propeller out too much, the thrust pulls them up and off the motor because the bigger the bigger propellers on 2S with good power, it makes a good amount of thrust. So I've managed to get figure out how to drill these propellers out just right. But it just doesn't matter. The hub is just too fragile. The long and short of it is that a 1.8 millimeter frame like this is going to generate really good power. It's going to be heavier. And all of that leads to more stress. Like, the propeller is the weak point, basically. With all builds, there's always going to be a weak point. The arms on a lot of open prop frames, the arms will be the weak point. On a setup with removable arms, I don't have one handy, but On a setup with removable arms that you pop a couple screws out and swap the arm, you actually want the arm to be the weak point. Let the arm break, swap it out, and you're good to go. It saves the motor, it saves the base plate, right? There's always going to be a weak point in a build. The thing that breaks the most often. When the weak point is the propellers, and they just disappear like this, and you now can't take it back off, that sucks. Because if that happens on a rooftop or somewhere that you can't get to, you just lost the entire build. This is a bit much. If this setup was like low power and 1S, it would be okay, I think. But it's not. This is a 2S powerful setup. And I'm just done with the 1.8 inch prop. This is going to get dropped down to a 1.6 inch propeller frame, a standard 75 millimeter frame, where I can run the Gemfan 1610 propellers. It's also going to be lighter set up like that. And so I could run I would have a better time running the HQ Ultralight 1.6 inch props, right? Because the setup is lighter. It's not going to crash as hard. It's also going to make a little bit less power. But the Gemfan 1610 biblade, it's just too good. It's very well balanced. It's not quite as lightweight as the HQ Ultralights, but on 2S you've got plenty of grunt. You don't even really notice that. And so, yeah. In my opinion, if you're going to do a 1.8 inch setup, you need to build it as light as possible on 1S, because when you get up to 2S and start making really good power, the propellers just become a real pain in the ass. So yeah, unfortunately I'm kind of done with this, but this X14 AIO will continue to live. I'm trying to fly this. The deal of building this is I wanted to see what this type of a setup on the slightly bigger propellers would be like. And it flies great. It flies absolutely awesome. If you don't crash something like this, it's rad. It makes a little bit more power than the 1.6 inch stuff, and it's got a little bit more efficiency. But as soon as you start crashing, which I do a lot, it just kind of falls apart. If at some point we get some durable 1.8 inch props, that'll change, and this will be a great setup. But until then, this needs to get shrunken down to a 1.6 inch build, because they're just amazing. They're super durable, super fun to fly. So yeah, there's a little X14 update. The AIO has been totally fine though. I've been pretty impressed by the X14, but I probably only have like 20 batteries through it. So I haven't, I haven't put 100 plus batteries through it like I like to before I can say something is, really, really good. But yeah, I'm never going to get to 100 batteries with it breaking props every other crash. So it has to get shifted over into something else. Hey, we're also going to fly a couple of batteries on stream today. This is the Ultimate Freestyle Tiny Whoop that's on a little bit of a different canopy setup. I changed this setup for the comparison that we did of plug-based motors versus direct solder motors. These two builds are pretty much identical. One of them's direct soldered, one of them's on the JST 1.25 motor plugs, the standard motor plugs. Unfortunately, during the testing, this crazy G473 blew up. I contacted Happy Model, and they're sending me a replacement AIO. I don't know if they'll do that with everybody. I have a relationship with them, so don't think, if you have an AIO that blows up, you're going to contact who you bought it from. Don't contact the manufacturer. I have a relationship with Happy Model, and so I can contact them direct and say like, hey, and like I didn't ask them for a replacement. I said, hey Jason, here's the experience that I had. If you want to check out, the total number of batteries that I flew and how hard the crash was, here's the link to the live stream. You can see it happen live and me try to troubleshoot it live. And he said, hey, I'll send you another one. We haven't heard of the ELRS specifically failing on this. When it happened, Frank Nicholas in the chat had an interesting thought, which is kind of the only thing that I can possibly think of, which is that with these wire antennas that you tend to get on a lot of these AIOs with ELRS built in, right? They'll just have a little piece of wire for the ELRS antenna. It's hard to see that there. There it is. You can kind of see it. With these wire antennas, they need to make sure that the tip of the wire antenna is also coated, because if the coating stops a millimeter before the tip of the wire antenna, and then the open conductive tip of that wire antenna touches the board somewhere, it could send basically a spike of electricity back through the ELRS. That's the only thing back into the ELRS chip. That's the only possible thing that could have happened here. I did have this antenna down, sitting against the board. Sometimes I'll, usually actually, I'll stand these wire antennas up like that, and I'll hide them back behind the canopy to have them protected. For whatever reason, I hadn't done that on this build, and so this antenna was sitting flat against the AIO. And I did hammer this thing into the wall upstairs, like unbelievably hard enough to break one of these Bri-Brain canopies, and these are pretty damn tough. And so that's like after the stream when I started thinking about, for the next 6 to 8 hours, as I do, going over everything that could have possibly happened. That's kind of the only thing that I can think of. But I don't know. It didn't blow up during that crash, which is why I initially didn't think that was the deal. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know why this crazy G473 blew up. Sometimes with Tiny Whoop stuff, they just blow up. Sometimes they blow up as soon as you put power to them. Sometimes they blow up the first time you hammer them into a wall at full throttle. Sometimes they blow up at random when you unplug one battery and plug in the next battery. So I don't know. Maybe that crash shifted that antenna, and the antenna was just barely pushed up against something conductive, and then for some reason when I unplugged and plugged the next battery in, it shifted. It's so hard to tell. It's an absolute miracle that these things work at all, with how hard and how often that I crash them. So I have a hard time saying like don't buy this or don't buy that. Unless we start to get 10, 20, 30 people on our Discord saying like, yo, same, like the first couple generations of Betaflight Air and Matrix AIOs, right? Like they were tacoing in half all over the place. And there was loads of people saying like, yo, I'm getting 10, 20 batteries out of this before either the VTX or the ELRS fails. And now Betafligh's new Matrix V2 AIO, they've done things to improve that. And so, yeah, sometimes it does sort of become obvious that a product is like sort of flawed. I don't know if that's the case on the crazy G473. I'm excited for the replacement to show up. I'll swap it into this. I will begrudgingly direct solder the motors all over again, right? This is like, it's funny. We were doing a comparison of plugs versus no plugs, and for 20 minutes we talked about how the serviceability of plug-based AIOs is just so much better, and like the livability and just it's just so much nicer to have the motor plugs. And then during that live stream, the direct soldered build dies, and now I've got half an hour to an hour of work taking this completely apart to direct solder another, the motors up to another AIO. It just like perfectly made the point of like, you know what? Yeah, okay, a little bit more efficiency, a little bit more power, maybe not. The testing that we did maybe shows that there is no extra power for the direct soldered motors. I have a hard time believing that, but sure, a little bit of an improvement direct soldered, but like from a livability standpoint, it just sucks, right? Like, so yeah, that's what's going on with that. We're gonna fly this guy a little bit more. I want to put some more time in on these VCI motors to see what I think of them. So yeah, that's the plan for today. In the chat, Flakadelic was first. You can FPV's next. Bando Turtle's Replicator, Level Up, Capital C, Spaceman Spiff, Uriel, Meyer CR, Sporny, Matthew Wagner, Frank Nicholas, Ricardo, Mike Owen, McMucus, Scott Stevens, Ola, Kevin Sumner, Ricardo. That's the full first page. If you want the Gangly Man to say your name, you got to get in here early, or just type at CiottiFPV, and I'll read your chat comment, see what you have to say. Levster says, hey gang and CiottiFPV. Flakadelic says, I have a Kayoumini frame, just no TPU, LOL. I could print you the TPU if you don't have a 3D printer. Craig says, ever use... Oh, no. TX2 Stomp with a $5 super chat. Thank you, brother. He says, thanks for the question you answered in Bardwell's live stream. You're certainly welcome. I forget what the question was. I was answering a lot of questions over there. Craig says, ever used a whoop to fly fishing line over a high tree branch? I need to pull a wasp's nest down before this spring. I haven't used a whoop to do it. I primarily use 5-inch rigs to do it because they're heavy enough that if I trust that they'll come down, right? Like, it's bad enough that you're tying a string to the thing, right? Like, you're asking for it to get stuck up in the tree. But yeah, I've had to do it a few times. I've gotten 5-inch rigs stuck in trees too high to get to with the extendable poles that I've got. And so I carry fishing line in my bag all the time. I'll tie that to the back of another 5-inch build. I'll fly it up over the branch and then disarm it and let it fall straight down. It always terrifies me because, you know, there's nothing worse than leaving 2 builds up in trees. When you do that, you know, you don't put a GoPro on the other 5-inch rig, so it's less expensive, but still, it's super sketchy. So yeah, Jimmy the Cow says, in honor of your stream, I'm charging my batteries to made in my Kayoumini 04 light build. The analog rips hard. Very cool. Yuke says, I have an Air 65 2 on the way. You're going to love it. Yuke says, do you have any of those open prop builds on 1S? What's the move if you wanted to do that? So the one that you were watching on the intro of the live stream, the V7, when I first built this, same exact build, it was on 1S. And I used the new Betaflight 1102 22,000s. I got these motors when Betaflight sent me the Meteor75 HD. And a couple other people that I've talked to have had this same experience where all of a sudden they're 1102 22,000s that look identical to all the previous 1102 22,000s that look like this one. All of a sudden these new ones are making a bunch more power. I think they're higher kV. And on these motors, it actually flew really good. I was using Tiny Whoop 1S 450 mAh batteries that have the little leads on them. And it was awesome. It flew really, really good. I moved it to 2S, and of course, it flies even better now. But it was shockingly good on 1S. And it might actually go back to 1S. It might not, because I won't fly it. If it goes back to 1S, I'll probably end up selling it with those batteries so that somebody else flies it. But yeah, realistically, like, I've moved to 2S with so many of these heavier builds. I'm not gonna carry a bunch of 2S batteries and a bunch of 1S batteries around. I'm just gonna carry and charge the 2S batteries. So I have a feeling that the fate of this Pro frame is going to be that it gets moved on to somebody else set up on 1S. But you never know. We'll see. I keep stuff that I fly a lot. I move stuff along that I don't fly a lot. You know, I only have 2 thumbs. I can't fly everything all at once. But yeah, it was stupid good on these Betaflight motors with the 2015 propellers. I couldn't believe how good it was, actually. You could also do the Gep RC 1002 25,000s, but that's a little bit too much kV for these 2015 propellers. If you wanted to fly it on the lighter weight, lower pitch propellers, those Gep RC motors would be good. But if you can get your hands on one of these new sets of Betaflight 1102 22,000s, that's what I would do. Unfortunately, there's no way to know. They have not changed the markings on the motor. They have not changed the naming convention. And so, like, in theory, if you order the motors direct from Betaflight, you'll get the new good ones. But maybe not. Maybe they have 5,000 more sets of the old 1102 22,000 sitting on their shelf, and that's what they're going to send you. And they're putting the new version on the 04 HD builds because they want it to fly good, and it's carrying an 04 system, right? So that's kind of tough. Maybe message them and say, hey, all of the Tiny Whoop reviewers are talking about the fact that they're getting these new hot 1102 22,000s that I have tested, and they absolutely make more RPM, shown in the Betaflight motors tab, on an adjustable power supply, supplying a static amount of voltage. And I've tested the old ones as well. Maybe say that to them and say, like, look, I want to buy a set of these new motors, but you haven't changed the markings, you haven't changed anything. If I buy a set, can you promise me that I'll get some of the good ones? At that point, they can just say, yes, we promise, and then you'll get them, and you have no way of knowing if they're the actual good ones because you probably don't have a set of the old ones, and an adjustable power supply that you can supply a perfect amount of voltage to. If you do have an adjustable power supply and you want to do that testing, you're going to need to build this stupid little setup. This is a capacitor and spike absorber from FPV Cycle. You need this to be in line with the BT 2.0 in order to reliably power up these Tiny Whoop AIOs. I don't know why, but this is the janky little setup that you'll need to have. Yeah. Kind of annoying. I really wish that they would change to put a version 2. I don't know. Welcome to FPV, I guess. Where's that in chat here? Nope. Sear FPV says, glad to be in good company again. You've helped me with a Tiny Whoop mod from GetBarC, the Tiny Go, a few years back. Thanks. You're certainly welcome, man. Welcome back. Mupshot says, I refuse to adopt BT3. Fair enough. Craig says, do you sell the landing fetuses on your Etsy? I don't, but that's actually a really good idea because I get them in those sheets and then they just sit. I don't use them. Yeah. I'm going to throw this over by farts, where I take pictures of shit to put on the Etsy store. And then I'm going to literally put them on the Etsy store. I'm going to literally call the item foam fetuses. Actually, I'm not going to do that because that would probably get my whole Etsy store shut down. It's a terrible idea. Jimmy the Cow says, highly recommend printing the CO3 camera mount for the Kayoumini build. Great camera, better than the Caddx Ant for the 2-inch build. You know what's interesting about you saying that? Last week, the week before, somebody mentioned in chat that they found out that there's like 5 different versions of the CO3 camera over the years. I'd never really noticed it. As soon as they said that, now I've started to notice it. I was flying outside yesterday, and I plugged in a build that I hadn't flown in a while that had a CO3 on it, and it was horrendous outside. The sky was completely blown out. I actually have to figure out which build that is and get the camera out of it. But inside, that CO3 was amazing. And so, yeah, if you've had a bad experience with the CO3 camera, that's probably what's going on. You're flying one of the versions that works really well. You're flying outside with one of the versions that works really well inside, or vice versa. I've done a bunch of testing with all of the Tiny Whoop cameras, and in that testing, which I'm doing inside at the workbench here with this pretty bright light on and off, it's awesome. It is always the best of the cameras. But again, I'm doing that testing inside. Super annoying. Yet another situation where, the same product has like different versions that we can't tell what it is other than using it. It's just, come on, man. You're killing us. Levster says, in Black Box, explain how do I put marker in the logs to find out the latency in milliseconds between the set point and the gyro, for example. Oh shit. Brandon did tell me how to do that. Do this. Go to my Discord, which is linked on CiottiFPV.com. Go into General Nonsense and type or do I have a black box text channel? I guess I don't. Go into General Nonsense and type @Brandon, and it'll pre-fill Brandon's beans. And say, Brandon's baked beans, how do I put it? Ask that question, and Brandon will see it, and he'll let us know. It might be M on the keyboard. It might be the letter M on the keyboard. I'm not sure. Type that question into Google as well. See if Google might be able to find the answer. I don't remember. Timmons is in the house. What's up, brother? Timmons made this absolutely amazing 3D print for me. He did the design on this, which he's put on the 3D printing channel of my Discord, and he printed this out. And I use this constantly when I talk about motor construction and motor design. Massive shout out to him. This is the coolest thing ever. Super helpful for me to show you guys, like, you know, how to get the C-clips off, or like where the motor shaft bends. Just absolutely amazing. Timon says, where can I find that BT 3.0 holder on your baby turtle? That's a sick solution that would work great for my M2. It's on the Thingiverse, actually, for the sub 250. So if you go to Thingiverse and then you search for sub 250G, you got to get the G in there. It'll find. It won't find. Search for baby turtle. It'll find. There it is. Sub 250G FPV. Here's the URL. Thingiverse's search is just worthless. Thingiverse.com/sub 250G FPV. You probably don't need this /designs. It's in here, and then you're gonna go to the V6 through V6.1. I'm pretty sure it's in here. I think it'll put the pictures in the file. Yep. And yeah, there it is. It's meant for XT60, but you can just put the BT 3.0 or even BT 2.0 right into the little XT30. I said XT60. I meant to say XT30. Yeah, you can put any plug in there, and it fits pretty well. Yeah, works awesome. Uriel says, during the Olympics, they are flying those. Yeah, Shaggy is absolutely killing it at the Olympics. Uze says, analog goggles on your Etsy? Any analog goggles on your Etsy? No. There's a set of version 1 DJI goggles up there, though, for a pretty good price. I have them priced a little bit less than what they sell for on eBay. But yeah, I don't have the budget to buy like every set of new analog goggles. And so yeah, I've got like my OG set of Fat Shark HD3s, and then I got a really good deal on a set of HD0 V1s from somebody that hangs out in the chat a lot, but that's really it. I used to have a backup set of Fat Shark goggles, but I sold those a little while ago. I mean, technically, I do also have a set of Fat Shark HD2s, but I was looking for those. I was looking to get a set of those for about 5 years, and then when I finally got them, and the field of view was too wide, I was so disappointed that I just decided that I'm gonna hoard them forever. But yeah, I don't have any analog goggles for sale. I'm still heartbroken about that, man. If you don't know, the Fat Shark HD2s had the widest field of view. It's not like crazy wide. It's not like DJI wide, but they had the widest field of view, I think, on any Fat Shark goggle, but they didn't make many of them. And when they got discontinued, everybody that had them kind of like hoarded them. and I had an eBay search, eBay saved search for literally like 5 years for them, and I would mention on the live streams every once in a while, like, hey, if you ever see anybody selling HD2s, let me know. And yeah, a few months ago, one of you was like, yo, somebody's selling them on Facebook Marketplace, and I jumped right on them, and I paid too much for them. And they showed up, and I was so excited because I use Fat Shark HD3s that I bought new 6, 7, 8 years ago for when I fly on the stream. They're super comfortable. They're awesome goggles. I don't have to DVR with them, which is good because the DVR is worthless. And I was just like so excited to start flying with HD2s, but that as soon as I started using them, I realized why they stopped selling them and moved to the HD3, which is that the field of view is too wide and the whole outside of the screen is super blurry, and that's where your OSD is. And so, yeah, they just sit in a Fat Shark case. It's criminal. Yuke says my HD0 goggles scroll wheel has been dying for months, and just yesterday the fans started making noise for no reason. I always keep them in my bag when not using them. Might take some skies. Get them fixed. HD0 is a small company. Their customer service is awesome. They will certainly fix those. It might not be free, but get them fixed. They're great goggles. McBuka says, heads up in case no one mentioned, I think you got the old thumb image from Friday still up. God damn it. That's... fucking YouTube, you are killing me. You are absolutely murdering my face, YouTube. That happens when I don't wait the exact right amount of time before uploading a thumbnail image. Oh wait, no. It's the right thumbnail image. It's the problem must be on Discord's side. Let me do this. If I edit the post and then repost it. Nope. If I remove the link, repost it, that'll take the link out, edit it, re-put the link back in. God damn it. Yeah, I mean, the thumbnail is correct on YouTube, but for whatever reason, Discord is grabbing the previous thumbnail. It's, you know, technology is the worst, as always. Mopshot says, how'd you miss out on flying in Milan? Have any specs on the craft there? Chasing skeleton skiing looks like a 5-inch. Yeah, unbelievably, they're flying unprop guarded 5-inch rigs around Olympic athletes. I don't. Ooh, boy. Certainly the laws in the airspace laws are different in Italy. You could never get away with that in this country. I'm shocked that they're doing it. I would personally not want to fly an open prop 5-inch rig around Olympic level athletes. That's wild. Most of the work at the Olympics is being done by DDG, Dutch Drone Gods, of which Shaggy is their main pilot. They're the guys that have done all of the really cool shit in Europe. They have Europe like locked down. All of the Red Bull stuff, all of the really crazy Red Bull stuff, the F1 chase, the really long mountain bike downhill run where they floated repeaters up on Mavics. So yeah, it's those guys are wild. What I did notice is that they're using the build that they're flying, they're running down the bobsled track, and the sub 250 build that they've got. I doubt that it's actually sub 250, to be honest. I think it's sub 250 in the same way that some of the rigs that I fly on the live broadcast stuff is sub 250. Like, it can be sub 250. The battery that is in my pocket makes it 250. But every once in a while, a slightly heavier battery will sneak its way onto it for a little bit extra runtime. So I think it's sub 250, but they've got 04 Lite as the FPV system, and then they've got a very expensive live broadcast camera and VTX setup on there up on top. Apparently they're like $3,000+ builds, mainly because of the camera system and VTX up on top. Non-ducted, open prop. It sounds like a 2.5-inch propeller. It might be a 3-inch, but I don't think so. It sounds an awful lot like a 2.5-inch prop. And then a very tall motor. I think it's like a 1507 motor or a 1407 or a 1406. It's a very tall motor. It is definitely not a 3-to-1 or 4-to-1 width to height motor. It's closer to like a 2-to-1 height to width motor, which is kind of cool because they're flying in the winter, in the snow, and the temperature is really low, and so they can get away with that. And I just think that's absolutely awesome. That's such a perfect example of, like, there is no best. There's just different. They're, you know, the environment that they're flying that in, they can get away with a motor that, for me, in, you know, the South here in fascism land, would overheat like crazy. Really, really, really cool. I absolutely love that. And they're I'm sure that thing is making great power on a motor that's that tall. I wouldn't be surprised if that's at least a 6mm tall stator, if not 7. But yeah, cool little setup that they've got going there. But that live broadcast camera and VTX system is something special. Something really special. And I find it hysterical that they're using an 04 Lite just as an FPV camera. Mupshot says, why shrink the 80 to a 75 instead of expanding it to an 85? I would expect a 2-inch prop to be the better alternative given the available inventory of props. Talking about this rig, mainly because it's analog. Analog, I don't really see the need to go beyond this size up to a 2-inch setup. For me, to do a 2-inch ducted setup, that's to offset the extra weight of an 04 Lite. To do an analog 2-inch rig, if it was like super windy here all the time, yeah, maybe. But I don't know. The analog setups on the 1.6-inch props on 2S absolutely hammer. It's got all the power and efficiency that I ever would want or need. And so, yeah, I don't really have much of a reason. If we had a really durable 2-inch frame, I would maybe think about it. But the Modulate frame, which is really the only option for 2-inch ducted frames, is not super durable. And this, you know, being analog, it's something that I'm going to just batter the living shit out of. And so, yeah, 65 it is, 75 it is. That's a good thought, though. Trauben, I'm just going to call you Trauben so that, because I'm from Cheeseburger Land. He says, how do you like the Happy Model X14 compared to the X12? Trauben and I were having a good discussion over in Joshua Bardwell's chat. I'm super glad you made it over, brother. Thanks for staying up late. He's in Germany. X14 compared to the X12. The X14 is a little bit more annoying in that you have to run the brand new 2015.12. whatever version of Betaflight, which you can only run on a web browser like Chrome. That just... I just find that to be annoying. It seems fine. I've done so many X12 builds that, like, the X12 is a known quantity. It's durable. It just works. You don't have to... It works on the browser-based version of Betaflight. It works on any versions of Betaflight firmware. It's just, you know, solid. The X14 is... You know, 6 months from now, we won't be caring about this because we'll all be using the web-based configurator and it'll be whatever. But at the moment, that's the one annoyance. It's fucking awesome that the X14 has black box, though. And so that's really, really, really nice. That eases all of the pain of having to use the online-based configurator. But yeah, for me, what... absolute, like, top priority for a tiny whoop AIO is durability. And I just haven't hammered this thing enough to be able to know that it's as durable as the X12. It should be. It's based on the X12, but we just don't know. Craig says, or the antenna wire could short a lead on the chip. True. I have a hard time believing though that the tip of the antenna wire would have hit the specific chip that it hit would have been the ELRS chip, because the antenna was all the way on the other side of the board. So I think more that the tip of the antenna wire might have hit something that passed extra electricity through the antenna, and the antenna is obviously connected to the ELRS chips, and that's what did it. But you never know. Flykadelic says, I bought 2 X14s and one won't connect to Betaflight. I learned a good lesson, though. Connect to Betaflight before wasting time working on it. Yeah, indeed. That's annoying. You bought 2 of them and one won't connect. You don't even troubleshoot that. You know, you've got one that will and one that won't. Obviously, the one that won't is bad, right? You don't need to try a different USB cable. You don't need to... something that I did learn that somebody sent me is that it was Frank Nicholas, I believe, that sent it to me. There is a GEP RC. It's either a GEP RC or a Flywoo board. It's the white boards. Flywoo, I think. Whatever the white AIOs are. There is an AIO that will not connect to Betaflight if you're using a USB-C to USB-C cable. You have to use a USB-C to USB-A cable. You have to use a cable that looks like this, where it's got the regular OG USB and then USB-C on it. I forget why. It had to do with like this cable passes 5 volt, I think, and USB-C does not. And they didn't put a voltage regulator on the board. But this makes me think of that. Before I thought through the fact that you have 2 of them, I thought like try a different cable. But yeah. Goddamn dogs. Yeah, that's a good life lesson for us all. When we get an AIO or a flight controller, plug it into USB and make sure that you can connect to Betaflight. Because if you can't, you're going to waste a whole bunch of time. Robert Cyrus says, I have a quart of 99% ISO, Jesus Christ, for you currently 3 gallons on my resin hobby, so I will share. Frank Nicholas actually sent me a bottle already. Thank you so much, Robert. That's super cool for thinking of me, but I'm good to go. CCAD Ryan says, I finished rebuilding the 1S Walksnail 75 Pro and got it through its first flights. I'll email you back box video from the hotel. So far it's been running 1080p HD. Very cool. I'm incredibly backed up though, so when you don't hear from me for like a week, just it's not personal. I'm just absolutely hammered right now. You Can FPV says, I have the new ones. At least they should come on the 04 Meteor 75, and they didn't seem much different. Would the GEP RC 25K be good? I assume that we're talking about Betaflight 1102s. I noticed a very easily noticeable difference between the old Betaflight 1102s. The GEP RC 1002 25,000s do still make more power, though. It's not as big of a stator. It's not going to stay as cool, but it does make more power. So the GEPs, the GEP 1002 25s are still the god motor for 1S 1.6 inch prop builds. Dirty Nachos says, how does it feel running 2S on those motors? What motors, Dirty Nachos? Basilius says, opinions on AMAX motors. Very well made, but apparently they're not all that durable. Bells look weird as hell. Kind of interested in their 1102 17,000. Yeah. I actually have a set of AMAX motors that I'm super excited to run. These are 1103 7500s. These are going to be used on one of these 2.5 inch builds. I have a set of AMAX 2305 and a halves, I think they are, on one of my freestyle builds that have been awesome. But I haven't crashed it super hard. And I've heard from other people that the AMAX motors are brilliantly made, but they're just not the most durable motors out there. So that's about all I know. Yamasor says, why is Betaflight just changing products and versions without telling us? Why is FPV like this? Because we don't punish them for not doing it. And it's not just them. Everybody does this. RunCam has done it with the RunCam Nano 3. Everybody does it. Absolutely everyone does it. Frame manufacturers do it. You know, on one hand, they're improving a product, but they're improving it for someone. They're making it worse for someone else that was perfectly happy with the old version, right? It's absolutely maddening. FPV is a tiny little microcosm of the universe, though, right? Like, we are a niche within a niche within a niche within a niche within a niche. And so there is, yeah, it's going to continue to happen like this. We just have to share as much information as we can with each other and figure this shit out and then tell as many people as possible. It is my pleasure to be someone that does that. The fact that a massive number of you have supported me through this journey for the past like 4+ years is awesome. If you want to be a part of that effort, CiottiFPV.com has links to all kinds of different ways that you can support me. The best way you can support me, though, hands down, is to join my Patreon. You can jump on there for as little as $3 a month. That's like 10 cents a day or like 20 cents per live stream. So, like, you know, think of when I helped you know to not buy a $40 set of motors and then divide that $40 up by $3 a month and, you know, hook a brother up and I'll tell you something else not to buy or something to buy that's really good that lasts twice as long as the other products. For $5 a month, you'll get on monthly giveaways that I do the first Monday of every month. You don't have to be on the live stream. You'll just win at some point, and a padded envelope with like $50 worth of tiny whoop stuff will show up at your door. That's worth the extra $2, right? There's also a $10 and a $15 tier for 3-inch parts and 5-inch parts if you only fly those. There's a $1 a day tier if you want to get entered into all 3 of those giveaways every month. Those people win a lot and get lots of cool stuff. So yeah, Patreon's the best way to support me. I have a bunch of affiliate links over there. Change your bookmarks to affiliate links if you don't use bookmarks and you just type the beginning of a URL into your browser. You can remove your current suggestion. So when you type AMA for Amazon and it suggests Amazon.com, you can remove that current suggestion and then hit my Amazon affiliate link like 5 or 10 times in a row, and then your browser will think that when you type AMA, you want to go to my affiliate link. You have to hit affiliate links over and over and over and over and over and over and over. So you have to do this. And if you don't use mine, use somebody else's. Support us that make the stuff that you watch for free, and we'll keep making stuff that you watch for free. How many content creators in the last bunch of years have just disappeared? This is hard to do. It's unforgiving. Negative comments really hurt. Even though they shouldn't. And so, yeah, support the people that you like to watch on YouTube, because if you don't, eventually they'll disappear. And that sucks. I hate that, man. Also, you know, don't talk shit. Just shut up. And when you see other people talking shit, blast them, because they're who ruin it. There was an amazing FPV pilot here in Atlanta who literally stopped making... myself included, loved watching his stuff, that stopped making stuff specifically because the negative comments were just hurt. And like, if your initial reaction to that is like, oh, well, that wouldn't happen to me, just suck it up. Like, yeah, no. Talk to any content creator. Every single one, if they're being honest, will tell you that they fucking hurt. It's just the way that our brains work. The negative comments stick out, and you remember them when you're trying to fall asleep, when you're in the shower. It sucks. And I can almost guarantee you that you would not deal with it better than any of us do. It's just the way it is. There's a bunch of other ways you can support me on there. Buy stuff from my Etsy store. Buy a t-shirt or other apparel from the Teespring link. Book some one-on-one time with me on Fiverr. I have a bunch of like suggestions for things that we can do, but you're going to buy a half an hour or an hour of my time. If you want to just hammer me with questions, that's great. If you want me to help you fly better, we can do that. If you want me to help you, build better, we can do that. Teach you to PID tune, teach you to solder better, whatever. Great way to support me and to learn a lot really fast. I try to dump all my knowledge into these live streams, but you got to watch a lot of these live streams to suck that all up. If you have 30 minutes worth of specific questions, we can just rip through those and you can learn a lot in a little amount of time. So, if you got more money than time, I got you covered. If you got more time than money, you're in the right place. Scott Stevens says Meteor75 Pro with 1103 15,000s propellers, throttle limit, floats like a cinder block with 3 blades. Meteor75 Pro 1103s are a little big, and that KV is a little low. I'm going to assume that that's on 1S because the Meteor75 Pro frame only accepts 1S batteries. So yeah, those are not the right motors for that. You want a 1002 or an 1102, 22,000 or 25,000 kV motor for that frame. And then the reason why you think it floats like a cinder block is that it's not making enough power. You're not getting any upward throw. And so, like, when you come off the throttle, it only has, like, a split second of upwards throw, and then it just starts falling out of the sky. With more KV and less weight, mainly the more KV, it's going to get a bunch of upwards. And then it's going to start coming down, and it's going to feel like it has more float. Also, the 1103s are too heavy, so it is not going to float well because that motor is too heavy. So, yeah, save those motors for a 2S build. Those are going to be perfect for a 2S build. Uriel says, and you got a good deal on 155 wide 04. It's true. Uriel is very kindly sending over a 04 light with the new Flywoo wide angle lens. So we're going to get to test that. That's actually going to be going into the Kayoumini because there is a camera pod that Pizza Daddy FPV on Instagram shared with me. For that Flywoo camera. So the Kayoumini is going to get that set up, which is going to be really cool. The baby turtles are going to get the regular 04 light set up. We're going to talk more about that in a minute. I just got to get caught up on chat here. Craig says, is your Discord going to be affected by Discord's new ID changes? It certainly is. I don't know what we're going to do. Discord is going to be requiring everyone, apparently, to upload... I've heard people say a picture of your driver's license. That's I think, a deal breaker for me, if that's true. I've also heard people say it just needs to be a picture of you. That's less of a deal breaker. I still don't like it. But I don't know. I put 10 hours of my face and voice onto the internet, onto the open internet every week, so who gives a shit at this point? For me, personally. Yeah, I don't know, man. If it's a picture of my driver's license, though, that's a lot. There's no reason for Discord to need that. And so, I don't know. I don't know. I have no idea. Uriel says, I hope it gives a great boost to drone fling. Ola says, the DDG drones following athletes are mostly 243 gram setups. Yeah, I don't, being someone who has built micros for 10 years, and who currently has a literal fleet of live broadcast rigs, I have absolutely no idea how they could possibly build what they're building at truly sub 250 grams. Maybe they are. I hope they are. But I have no idea how they're doing it. So yeah, maybe that live broadcast camera and transmitter setup is incredibly lightweight. They typically are not. And yeah, I know the speeds that they're carrying. I know what kind of speeds you can get. Yes, it certainly helps that they're flying something that's open propped, and my setups, being in cheeseburger land here, have to have prop guards, and that has a serious effect on aero. But yeah, I'm gonna bet you that there is a battery that will make it sub 250, and I'll bet you when there are cameras pointed at them, that battery might be on there. But I'm willing to bet that when they actually fly it, that they're putting a battery on there that is going to push the weight up above 250. And to be honest, who gives a shit? It's open prop. It doesn't make a shit bit of difference if it's 249 grams or 300 grams. It's going to do the props are going to do the damage. And and they're not going to do much damage because they're micro props, and it's going to be totally fine. And so it really doesn't matter if it's 300 grams or 350 grams even, to be honest. I doubt it's that heavy, but yeah, I'm if they're actually flying it during the live broadcasts at 249 grams, I'm shocked. Ola says, in Italy, EASA, I guess is the name of their the version of FAA here. There is the specific category for more risky operations. That's pretty cool. Ola also says the sub 250 builds in Italy are about 18,000 USD a piece all up, is what they said anyway. I'd heard them say either 2,000 or 3,000 euros, and so I did a quick calculation to $3,000 US. 18,000 seems a bit much, but those broadcast camera and video transmitters are hideously expensive. The quad itself, the frame, the flight controller, the video system, the electronics is what we built. It's, you know, a couple of $100, $200-300, which is, I find that to be even funnier. That, you know, they've got a multi-$1,000 video system on like a $300 setup, right? But, you know, that's FPV, man. Breezy Does It says, hey, have you done the 04 wide-angle lens upgrade from Flywoo yet? Nope, but it's on the way, thanks to Uriel. Is there any recall that needs to be done to achieve optimal results? Not sure how. Recall? Any recall that needs to be done? I'm not sure what that means. Tag me again and explain it as if I'm an 8-year-old. Breezy Does It says, is there a most efficient 50 plus amp stack for 6S that has easy 04 connection plug and play you recommend? Your flight controller / ESC is not going to affect efficiency. So they're all as efficient as one another. Easy 04 connection, plug and play, there's loads that do that. It's really hard to keep track of 6S / 5-inch electronics at this point, especially here in the US where nothing is in stock because we're being run by absolute maniacs. And so, yeah, I don't know what's currently in stock. Apparently SkyStars is doing a great job making stuff at the moment, and then T-Motor always does a great job making stuff. A lot of their expensive stuff is made by Acon. If you can find Acon stuff, that's always really good as well. So there's a couple names for you to kind of take a look at. But yeah, it's super hard right now. 5-inch stuff though, 6S stuff has been around long enough where most of it is going to be totally fine. So yeah, you can kind of close your eyes and point to that stuff, and you should be all right. Mubshot says, can't connect to Betaflight, desolder anything using power on UART1, UART3. Very true. Very, very true. On a tiny Whoop AIO, there's probably nothing externally hooked up, but yeah, that is a thing that that is very annoying. Badaturin says, just finished a build with the X14 and thought it was broken until I realized the VTX doesn't power via USB. You have to have the battery connected. Yeah, I love that they did that. I hate plugging an AIO into USB and the VTX starts banging away. I love that they did that on the X14. Kevin Summer says, USB-C not working. The manufacturer left off the ultra cheap resistor that tells the computer to send 5 volts. Otherwise, USB-C doesn't send any voltage, unlike the original USB-A. There you guys go. Frank Nicholas, here he goes. Flywoo Goku F405 HD. There it is. USB-C on board. Board does not include required 2 resistors to inform USB-C ports have passed over, broken by design. Orc says, I know Flywoo 04 more without stabilization, but I feel like my footage looks so much worse not stabilized. Do you have any ideas how I could fix jitters after stabilizing on the Kayoumini? Gyroflow is kind of the only option. So download it, it's free, and give it a shot. Jitters are tough, though. It depends on the frequency of the oscillation. Gyroflow is the only option. Give it a try. If it doesn't work, then you're back where you started. Yeah, I don't like the way that stabilized freestyle footage looks. That's just me. I'm lucky enough to have found FPV a decade ago and got completely obsessed and started flying hundreds of batteries a month. And so I've been able to get really, really good at flying smoothly. But yeah, give Gyroflow a shot. It's the only way. I mean, I guess you might be able to turn on Rocksteady, but it's not nearly as good as Gyroflow, so try Gyroflow. Daniel says, what frame is on the blue props with purple printed parts in the under RCN Power label? What frame on the blue props, purple printed parts? Blue props, purple printed parts. This is what I was flying on the intro. In the intro to the live stream, this is Baby Turtle V7 analog build, Caddx Ant camera, 1002, 18,000 kV motors, motor limited down to 75%, Gemfan 2015 props, X12 AIO. Yeah, awesome build. We're going to talk more about it in a second. I just got to get caught up on chat. Holy shit, it's 420. Fractically says Discord has backpedaled on some of the ID requirements just a day or two after. Thank God. I'm hoping that they backpedal all the way to the point where they say, hey, just kidding. We were dumb. FizzPV says there's an easy way around it. LOL. Maybe that's in reference to the Discord stuff. Mupshot says PII detail is 100% a deal breaker. Everyone should refuse. I agree. Hold on. YouTube did the thing. Levster says almost all of Vienna inner city is a no-fly zone. It doesn't matter how heavy the drone is. If I want to fly, I have to go into the woods or in my own backyard. Vienna really sucks for FPV. There's a bunch of France is also really bad with that. Germany is also really bad from what I understand with that. Fractically says the Flywoo Goku mentioned allows you to set VTX 9-volt regulator on a switch to be manually toggled. That's very cool. TDB says, finally caught you live. Great FPV info for rookies and veterans alike. I appreciate you, man. Thank you, dude. I tend to skew more towards kind of veterans. I don't try to be FPV 101. I don't find that I'm all that good at that. I also don't enjoy it as much. I try to be FPV 102, 103, 104. Like, you know, once you're up in the air and you want to go from good to great, that's where I tend to be able to help. Rookie questions, I try my best on, but yeah, that's just not like my focus. Joshua does a much better job, and Blunty, they do a much better job at that kind of stuff. And so also like I don't like, they've got that locked down, and so I don't try to dive into that world all that much. Tanky says Shaggy with his Olympic drone made the national news here in the Netherlands and a few other channels from countries covering. You should look it up. Yeah, there's been some really good coverage of him. He's well deserved, man. He is one of the OGs from DRL back like 9-10 years ago. Awesome guy. It's been so cool to see him. He was one of the earlier guys on the going from drone racing to cinematic. And he's been a wonderful example of FPV forever. Just an awesome dude. I don't know of anybody better other than maybe Finky to be doing what he's doing over there. We're very lucky to have had him. FizzPV says, like AI Avatar now can be locally done. Oh, interesting. Tanky also says, why is it not tagging me? This is two people. Oh, okay. It's funny. Tanky, the first time you tagged me, there was a space between @ and CiottiFPV, so it didn't light up in orange. And then the second time, you put 2 eyes in C. I was like, why did it didn't turn orange for me twice in a row? It's all good. It was pretty tiny. Looked like a 2-inch or 2.5-inch prop. with a pretty big broadcast unit on the back. Yep, there's really good. I posted a link on my Discord with some of the best pictures of their micro build that I've seen. All right, open prop 2 and 2.5 inch builds. We're gonna get to 2.5 inch in a second. Let's just really quick hit 2-inch builds first. So sub 250G FPV on Instagram. He also has sub 100G FPV. This is different than sub 250. Sub 250 is a brand that they use like a light blue color on all their products. But yeah, this is totally different. Sub 250 is a brand that sells some decent stuff, some not so great stuff. Their 65 millimeter 1.2 inch prop, tiny whoop frame sucks, but they've got some motors that are great. They're not making the motors, they're having somebody else make them for them, but whatever. Sub 250 is a brand, they make some cool stuff. Sub 250G FPV, no spaces, on Instagram, is who makes the baby turtle frames, which you can buy over on cncdrones.com. Here's his page on CNC Drones. He has some bigger ones that I'm not really into because they're fixed base plate. In my opinion, once you get to 3-inch propellers, you should have removable arms. That's just my opinion. 3-inch and above, you should always have removable arms. I crash a lot. I break a lot of shit. And so solid base plate frames, for me, kind of suck. Because every time I break an arm, I got to pull the whole build apart. And that takes a lot of time and effort. Pull this over here so you guys can see it a little better. What really interests me about Sub 250G is his smaller stuff. He has a couple of builds that are down on 1.6 inch or 1.8 inch props. If you're going to go that small, for me, you should be in a prop guarded frame. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense, in my opinion, to have propellers smaller than 2-inch without prop guards, because it's not going to be fast enough to take advantage of the fact that there's no prop guards. And yeah, like whatever. If you want super, super small, keep it in a plastic tiny whoop frame. It's going to be awesome. Once you get up to 2-inch though, these things fly really good. They're still infinitely lightweight, infinitely safe, infinitely quiet. And so at the moment, I've got 2 baby turtle builds. This is the V7. This is the Pro. The difference is basically that the width of the front standoffs on the V7 is smaller for analog cameras. I don't think you can fit an 04 light camera in here. The Pro is the Pro, right? I'm sorry, it's the HD. It's the HD. Hold on. So, let me just make absolutely sure. It's the Pro. Okay, yeah. Pro Turtle 2-inch. This is made for the front standoff with. You can get camera mounts for analog cameras on this, but the front standoffs are wider so that mainly you can run the 04 light camera in it. So to be really honest, if you're going to buy a 2-inch baby turtle, buy the Pro. Buy the Pro Turtle 2-inch. If you want to do an 04 light, you can. If you want to do an analog camera, you can as well. And then, but I wanted to know the difference between these frames. So I got a baby turtle V7 and then I got the Pro as well. If I could do it all again, I would have just gotten 2 of the Pros. But yeah, if you want to save a couple of grams, the baby turtle V7, if you're going to build an analog, the baby turtle V7 is the way to go. It's going to be a tiny little bit lighter. It's not going to be that much lighter to kind of offset, to be really honest. So just get the Pro. My experience with these has been absolutely awesome. The way that the frames are designed, they're strong, they're nice and lightweight. There's a ton of 3D prints available on his Thingiverse page. The 3D prints are very well thought out. I can print any of those. I offer printing services on my 3D printer over here through my Etsy store. Just message me, we'll get you all handled. Yeah, the Pro built up really nicely with AIO, and then 04 light on top. With the extra weight of the HD system, you're going to go up to a 1103 or 1003 motor. The 1102 or 1002 motor is not quite big enough for the extra weight and for the power on this. Just go up to the bigger motor, go up to the 3mm tall motor. It makes a big difference. It's awesome. You can then pair it with these genius Gemfan 2023S propellers. That's the big thing that the bigger motor gives you the option to do, is run these propellers. And these propellers are fantastic, really durable, really well balanced, great performing prop, really well matched to this whole build. If you're going to do an analog build, you can drop down to the 2015 propeller, or even the more tiny whoop, lighter weight, lower pitch propellers. I don't like those lower pitch, lighter weight propellers because you don't have a prop guard with these to protect the prop. And those HQ ultralight props are going to implode if you're smacking them into the concrete. So for me, these open prop builds need to be on these more beefy propellers. Luckily, we've got really good options. Gemfan 2015 if you want the slippery, slidey efficiency of a biblade. Gemfan 2023S if you want the more durable, more grippy tri-blade. Of these two builds, I really prefer this one. At the moment, this is on 1002s. You can get away with 1002s or 1102s on these 2015 biblades. But if I keep this together, it is actually going to get moved to a 1003 motor. 2-inch props like the bigger motors for better response time. I have the PID tune pushed to the fucking moon on this thing, and it will end. The filtering is dialed in, and there is just prop wash that will not come out, which essentially means that the motor and prop combo can't give me fast enough response time to speed up and slow the motors down quick enough to get rid of that last little bit of prop wash. It only really happens when I specifically put it into prop wash, but every once in a while when you're flying normally, you will be in a situation where it's in the worst case scenario and you get that prop wash, and you know that looks like crap. And like, we have gear available that will give us response time that these things just never prop wash, and it's magic. And when you do that, the whole flight experience is better. Like, if you have a motor and prop combo that has the right, to me, it's the right response time, which is really good response time, your flight experience is better, because every time that you move the sticks, the response time is quicker than a setup that has a little too small of a motor or a little too heavy of a prop. And so your whole flight experience is better. You feel better connected. You don't have to put the PIDs all the way up. You don't have to put the PID sliders all the way up to the max, right? And just the whole flight experience is better. Is it a little bit heavier in that case? Absolutely. So, like, if you want the lightest possible build that's the most efficient possible, that's going to run the longest distances, okay, run the smaller motor. If you're flying freestyle and you want something that flies better, put the right size motor. And for these 2-inch builds, 1003 or 1103 is the right size motor. These frames are great. I've got one more 2-inch build coming. One of these two, probably this analog one, is going to get pulled apart when that happens. This is the Maxx Frames M2, MAXX. You can find them on Instagram, MAXX_frames. This is his M2 2-inch freestyle frame. Really cool design. My favorite thing about this is the motor protection here. I absolutely love... Oh, shit. What did I just do? Good Lord. That didn't work the way I wanted it to. The devil horns on the end of the arms are the best way of protecting your motors. Motors are the most common thing to blow up in hard freestyle crashes, and so motor protection is a big deal for me. Absolutely love that he's got this set up. On the one of the only things that I don't like about the baby turtle frames is that they have kind of the setup that like everybody uses. It's pretty rare. This is one of the reasons that I love the glide frames so much, is that they have this mega protection on the ends of the arms. Most other frame designers just do a little bit of a bump out, like one single bump out. You've got the arm, and then you've got the motor mount base, and then they'll just add a little bit of carbon. And that works if you hit perfectly diagonal. But if you hit like this, or if you hit like that, or like that, it doesn't work as well. And as somebody that crashes a lot, that does matter. On the bigger baby turtle frames, I absolutely love to see that they've done the more devil horn setup, but these are not as far out as this Maxx frame. This Maxx frame did a perfect job adding motor protection. This frame has the best motor protection out of any of these small frames. Kayoumini, same as sort of everybody else. They just added a little bit more protection out here. But if you hit like this, or if you hit like this, without this giant motor guard here, TPU motor guard, you're going to bang up a motor. Christian Earnshaw, are you in the chat? I'm dying to find out. Christian Earnshaw sent me this, and I don't know what this TPU is, and I got loads of people asking me. Christian, if you see this, please message me somewhere and let me know what this TPU is. People are hounding me. My main concern, so the Maxx M2 frame seems really good. My main concern about the frame, though, is that I believe the carbon fiber is oriented incorrectly. The carbon fiber is oriented so that the strongest direction of the weave is north, south, east, west. And that is typically not what we want. Typically, we want the carbon fiber strands to go at a 45-degree angle, because that is going to align the strands down the length of the arm. How I can tell that is that if I take this frame and bend it like this, it bends pretty easily in this direction. But if I twist it, if I take the arm ends and I twist it, it's really stiff, which is kind of interesting. When Rosser does frame analysis, and he puts it into that fancy software, he always shows, oh, it's U capital C. Your guys' names kill me. Christian, what is this TPU, dude? Everybody's asking me what the hell this TPU is. It's certainly not Sane Smart. Is it even TPU, or is this PEBA? It seems very stiff. Let us know what it is. When Rosser does those frame analyses, one of the things that he always shows is the rotation. The motors will rotate these arms, and that makes that'll make a spike somewhere in the frequency. So this M2 frame is actually going to do a really good job isolating that rotation. What it's not going to do as good of a job is when you smash into stuff. And basically, I've had plenty of frames where the carbon fiber is oriented like this, where the strands are not going down the length of the arms, they're going up, down, left, right. What typically happens on frames like this is that in crashes, the arms are going to bend more. So if it's a light crash, the arm is going to bend a little bit extra, which actually kind of helps to slowly absorb the energy, and then it's going to bend back. The problem occurs on really hard crashes, where the arm is going to bend a lot, and then it's not going to bend back straight. And so you'll eventually have a situation where one of the arms will not be totally flat. It'll be bent up, and then the propeller will hit the standoff or the stack or the front standoff or something like that. And so essentially, and also the vibration that's going to happen down the length of the arm is going to be worse, because the arms aren't, again, the carbon fiber is not going the length. Most frames and all of the other frames here, all the 6 other frames here, they've all got the carbon oriented, the more normal sort of direction, which is the length of the arm. And so this is another 2-inch frame. So if you look at how much this frame bends, I'm going to try to put the same amount of force into the frame. Hopefully you can see that, because I'm going to pull until I'm going to just use my middle fingers here. And when you start, I'm going to stop when I start to like shake a little bit, right? And so I'm going to bend this until I start to shake, right? And there's very little bend on this. When I do that same thing with the Maxx frame, you're going to see that it bends a lot more before my muscles start to shake to stabilize it. And so that's my only concern with this frame, is that I'm going to break the arms, or I'm going to delaminate the arms. Basically, when you bend carbon fiber over and over again, it starts to delaminate, and then it gets really weak, and then you have the situation where it bends and doesn't straighten back out. You can, once one of these arms does bend and stay bent, you can just bend it right back, but then it just gets worse and worse and worse and worse, right? And so TPU Sunlu Burgundy Silk. I absolutely love the Sunlu Silk. It prints beautifully. There we go. Very cool. Thank you, Christian. And again, thank you for sending this over. Super generous. And so that's my concern with this. Max was very kind. He has sent me a set of motors for this and an AIO for this. So this is going to get built and flown like constantly. This is not going to be a build that I take apart and put into something else, because he's sent me over all the stuff. And as like a massive thank you for that, I'm going to keep flying this. I'm going to keep showing you guys flight footage in hopes that, yeah, he sells enough of these frames to offset the fact that he's sending me like $100 and something worth of electronics. I bought the frame for him, and then he threw in a bunch of extra stuff. So huge shout out to him. Mega thank you. I hope that at some point, like maybe the next run of these frames that he has cut, I hope that he specifically, usually what happens is that you send the 3D file to the company that's going to cut it for you, and for them, they can fit more frames on a sheet of carbon if they orient them like this, and bang, 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 bang. So for the company cutting the carbon, they can make more money from you by orienting the carbon like this. You almost always have to specifically tell them, hey, I need you to orient the frame so that the north, south, east, west is like this. So hopefully on the next run of these frames, it's oriented like that. Maybe this frame works better with the carbon set up the way that it does. I doubt it. I've never seen that. I've used at least a dozen different frames over the last decade that have had the carbon like this, and exactly what I'm describing is always what happens. There's more oscillations from the arms bending, and the arms are just not as strong. This frame with the carbon oriented like this, because of the better motor protection, I think I might prefer this over the baby turtle frames. I think you should get whatever frames in stock when you want to get it, because typically there's only ever one in stock when you're ready to buy. I think all of these frames are really, really good, and you're going to like all of them. But, you know, if I'm comparing them, I'm going to nitpick like crazy. Max's 3D prints are awesome. I love the way that he's done these mounts up here. They like latch into the carbon. That is really, really cool. The way that Sub 250G does it is just a simpler, smaller piece of TPU that kind of moves around. This is the lighter weight way of doing it that's a little bit more annoying to live with. This is a slightly heavier way of doing it that's lovely to live with, because you just throw the battery straight through the mount and away you go, right? So like this is infinitely easy to mount your battery because they have those cool little latches, and now you're good to go. On the Sub 250, it's a little bit fiddly because you have to hold this one just right. You have to push this one all the way forward, and then you have to put the lead through the back one. You have to make sure this is put all the way back, and then you gotta like come here. Then you gotta pull that out. I've gotten good at it because I've done it a bunch. And then you gotta get the front one. You gotta pull the front one forward a little bit. Just takes another couple of seconds to get the battery mounted properly. Not the end of the world, but hey, we're comparing them. I am legitimately trying right now to do this. I love these baby turtle frames, but this is one of the things that I'm like, yeah. And so there it goes. So 15 more seconds of fiddling to get the little battery things. You could just run one of these battery loops, probably, but I like the security of having two of them. And then to take the battery out, it's much easier. You just pop the front one down, and then the battery pops right out. So yeah, nitpicky, but a thing. I think that's all I have to say about these 2-inch frames. The sub 250 3D printed stuff is also really good. The Maxx frames will come with the 3D prints. The Baby Turtles do not. The Baby Turtles come with carbon fiber, and then you got to either print the TPU stuff yourself, or, like I said earlier, I can print that for you. Just get in touch with me. Yeah, the 2-inch builds are very fun, very lightweight, very quiet. And the prop size, the 2-inch prop size, is a really nice match with the weight of these builds on a 2S300 mAh battery. And this might be the sweet spot. 2-inch might be the sweet spot. It might not. And if it isn't, these 2.5-inch Baby Turtles or the Kayoumini 2.5-inch are going to be the way to go. The ratio of prop size to your all-up weight is very important. Some people call it disc loading. It's disc loading. Let's not get into it. But look, the propellers are always spinning. And so you can think of the propellers and the body of the frame as a parachute. It is providing... It causes wind resistance. The propellers are always spinning, and so they're sending a little column of air off the bottom. And so the propellers themselves, the little column of air, and then the body of the frame is going to hit the wind. So when you hammer the throttle and then you chop the throttle, the amount of throw, the amount of momentum that you get is going to be controlled by how fast it is, how much power it's got, right? If you've got big, powerful motors and you can generate 40, 50 miles an hour, it's going to have more energy. But it's mainly like a toothpick, a 3-inch toothpick. They're fast, but they have such a big propeller and so little weight that, like, yeah, okay, you generate a lot of speed, but then pretty much the second that you come off that throttle, it just hits a wall. And it has very little momentum, very little throw. These 2-inch builds, at the weight that they're at, with the prop size, they're awesome. They're very well balanced, that you can throw them over stuff. It's really, really fun. I'm really having a blast flying them. Well, now we go up to a 2.5-inch propeller. I know that doesn't sound like a big change, but it's 4 2.5-inch propellers. So it actually is. It's a significantly bigger parachute. And so what we don't want to do, necessarily, is build these 2.5-inch rigs to be the same weight as the 2-inch rigs. We want these to be heavier. They're going to be heavier. You're going to have to run a bigger motor for the bigger, more draggy propellers. Then you're going to have to run a bigger battery, because the bigger motors and the bigger propellers are going to take more juice, right? And so these 2.5-inch builds are going to be heavier. What you don't want to do is try to put like a 1002 or an 1102 motor on these 2.5-inch builds. You want to go to a bigger motor. Absolute minimum 1003, 1103. But realistically, I think you're going to want like 1202 and a half, 1303, 1104 maybe. We want a bigger motor on these 2.5-inch builds to control the props, but also to add weight. We want to add some weight to these. Let me really quickly, because I've forgotten to do it, let me give you some weights, speaking of. So frame weight does matter. The lighter to me, I want the lightest possible frame that is also strong enough. If it's not strong enough, I don't want it. And so I would actually rather have a frame that's a little bit too heavy, that's definitely strong enough. Does that make sense? Maxx Frames M2. I'm weighing all of these with all of the TPU. You could lighten these up by not running the rear antenna mounts and just using a zip tie, but boy, is it nice to have this TPU. Maxx M2, 16.4 grams. This is a 2-inch frame. The Baby Turtles are already built, so these weights are not quite right, but the analog one is 36.4 grams, ready to go. The digital one is 52.8 grams. Big weight difference because extra 8 grams of HD, Bigger motors, 1103 versus 1002. The propellers are also heavier on here. Everything else is the same. These guys are BT 3.0. So now we get into the 2.5-inch builds. Baby Turtle, the analog Baby Turtle, like V7, HD. Baby Turtle HD, I think this is called. Maybe Pro, whatever. It's not the Bando Turtle. This frame is 18 grams right on the nose with all the TPU. Bando Turtle, 2.5-inch, is 21 grams right on the nose. Kayoumini, 27 grams. All right. So big difference between the Baby Turtles and the Kayoumini. And that weight difference is probably going to be it's going to be one of the two biggest differentiating factors between the Baby Turtles and the Kayoumini. The other big difference here, and this is a bit of a weird one, but stick with me, is that Kayou has an incredible website with an incredible amount of information on the Kayoumini. This is just the product page, and there is some really good info here. But if you go to, is it starter packs? Yeah, here it is. So if you go to their website, Kayou-frames.com, up on the top, Kayoumini 2.5 under starter packs, holy hell, they have spent a ton of time on this page here breaking down a ton of like pretty much all of the AIOs, some of the pluses and minuses of each one, a bunch of the different cameras, a bunch of the different VTX HD systems, other AIOs, a bunch of different motors, batteries, like propellers. This is awesome. I actually talked to one of the co-founders of Kayou, and it was really funny. He was like, yeah, I kind of got the idea for this from FPV Know-It-Alls page. And I know you did some of the work on there, and we had a really cool conversation about, you know, how I worked with Joshua a couple of years back. Like, we had like weekly calls. It was like a team of 4 of us that did just so many hours of work on the FPV Know-It-All page. And so, yeah, the ethos behind this page is actually loosely based on some of the work that we'd done on Joshua's page. And so just, this is like absolutely amazing. This is such a cool resource here. Massive shout out to Kayou for doing this. One of the things I love about Sub 250 is actually his Instagram page. And so on Instagram, if you search for, it's right here, Sub 250, the resources that you're going to get from Sub 250 is a ton of flight footage, which is really, really cool. So on his Instagram page here, if you click through on, like, let's find, so here, HD Baby Turtle DJI 04 Lite, well, not in this one, but if you spend a bunch of time on his Instagram page here, you can find the frame that you're interested in with some flight footage and the build that he's done here. Usually, yeah, here you go. So he's broken down the actual build: 2-inch HD Turtle, GemFan 2023S, Betaflight 1102 14,000s 2S, right? And so this is also really, really, really valuable stuff. It's not broken out into a fancy looking website, but it's here. You can rip through it. You can get a bunch of flight footage. So really good resources from both, just in different kind of ways, to help you figure out, like, which motors do you want? Which props do you want? All that stuff, right? So now let's go back to the actual frames. We'll talk about the Kayoumini first. Significantly heavier. In the past, I have dinged frames for having like big, wide open, flat pieces of carbon fiber, mainly Rotor Riot frames. Rotor Riot frames look a lot like this, where there aren't many cutouts. They're just, you know, big slabs of carbon fiber. There's a cutout here and here for the USB port to come through, but that's kind of it. I typically gravitate towards frames with areas cut out where they don't really add to the strength. Like these areas here don't do much, if anything, for the strength of the frame. The forces that we put on these things come through these directions. They come through the arms, and so we stiffen up a lot of the diagonals, and then we kind of triangulate and connect them. And so, and what we saw on the scale is that, you know, this 2.5-inch frame is significantly lighter weight than this one. What's interesting about this one being lighter weight is that Sub 250 has added on the Bando frames, they've added this, and this. And what's cool about these pieces is these shorten the effective length of the arm. And so really these arms are only actually this long. When you put a bunch of energy into the end of this arm, that's the lever right there. And that's going to be really, really strong. On the Kayou, well, we'll stay with the baby turtle frames. On the non-Bando baby turtle frame, we don't have that extra little piece here. And so the effective length of the arm is actually here. And so two things are going to happen. This longer arm is going to vibrate at a lower frequency. And that's not what you want. You want any vibrations to be as high of a frequency as possible, because the movement of the quad, the actual movement, is between typically 0 and 200 hertz. And so you want to try not to filter that. You want the actual movement of the quad to be to have as little filtering as possible. And so one of the tricks to frame design is to do things like this to make the arm shorter so that it vibrates at a higher frequency. And so this is gonna help with PID tuning. It also helps with durability, right? The shorter the lever, the less the mechanical torque, in this case, disadvantage. And so this is really clever on the Bando Turtle frame, and I really do like this setup here. The Kayou is another frame that's got sort of the more traditional design with a longer kind of arm. The thickness of the carbon fiber is another way that you can get around that. The thicker you make the carbon fiber, the stronger you make this. I don't know how, I mean, like, I can take these and sit here and try to, like, bend them and get a feel for, like, how much they actually bend, but that is a terrible way of doing it. I mean, just trying my best to kind of tell this particular frame, and you can kind of tell by the thickness of the arm. This is pretty thin. This is the lightest of the frames. I think this is almost 10 grams lighter than the Kayoumini. Go figure. This has a little bit more flexibility than the Kayoumini. No surprises there. I would absolutely expect that because this arm is a little bit thicker in this dimension than the baby turtle. But then we've got the baby turtle Bando, and this is like really strong because they've got that reinforcing this. All three of these, I can almost guarantee you, are plenty strong. I don't think we're going to have much issues with any of these breaking frames. I do like on these baby turtle frames that they've got this extra piece out here to try to protect the motors. What I will say is that when you are going to mangle this, and so this isn't going to last super long, but it is going to protect your motors while it's still there. The Bando Turtle doesn't have as long of a point, but it does have the little devil horn design here, which I do really like. The Kayoumini potentially has the least protection on the end of the arm in terms of protecting your motors, but this is the thickest sort of, so this will like wear down the slowest. If this frame is going to be the heaviest, I would love to see more carbon fiber here. They do have a 3D print file, 2 different 3D print files out of TPU to protect the arm, which is great. This will do a good job protecting the motor, but this is very heavy. I always prefer more carbon fiber because it is a much lighter weight material than TPU, but these are solid base plates. And so like that, my thought process there is on removable arm frames where, yeah, sure, bang the shit out of the carbon fiber here. When it gets totally banged up, you remove the arm and swap a new one on. On a solid base plate frame, that changes because if you wear these down, you got to take the whole thing apart and get a whole new base plate. That sucks to have to do that. And so having less carbon fiber and then more TPU, which is easily replaceable, kind of makes more sense on a solid base plate frame. There actually is no TPU for this Baby Turtle HD to protect this arm end. So as a solid base plate frame, this is potentially going to be the one that gets mangled the quickest. It depends, right? Like, what do you crash into? Do you crash into the grass all the time? Doesn't matter. None of this matters. I crash into concrete all the time and pavement. And so this does matter for me quite a bit. So, keep that in mind. If you're flying these in parks or if you're flying these over grass, none of this conversation here is going to matter all that much. But when you start smacking into really solid stuff, it is absolutely going to matter. In terms of protecting the camera, which is another big thing for me, I really prefer this layout where you've got carbon fiber all the way up front, a set of standoffs, and the camera is in between and behind the standoffs. I've always experienced that this protects the camera the best. You've got carbon, aluminum, steel screws, and the camera is all the way back in the inside. So I actually like this the most from a protect the camera standpoint. Christian, is this TPU? Can you confirm for me that this is TPU? It feels like it's stiffer than Sane Smart TPU. It could just be the design of the print files. The Bando Turtle and the Kayoumini are doing this thing that we're starting to see more and more in FPV, where we're putting the cameras out in front of the carbon fiber in TPU. That scares the hell out of me. The Bando Turtle scares me more than the Kayoumini because this print is just, it's lighter weight. This frame is significantly lighter, but this print is just more malleable, right? You can kind of see it moving around here. Maybe it's fine. I am relatively new to these 2-inch, 2.5-inch ultralight AIO based builds. Maybe this is plenty of protection and this camera will never die. I always go for like way too much protection to make sure that the camera system never explodes. And I think the Kayoumini is going to do a better job with that. The way that this TPU is mounted is really, really cool. It hugs the bottom plate here, and then it wraps around the standoffs, which is the standard kind of setup, and then it butts up against the top plate. This allows you to run different length standoffs to raise the top plate up and down. The print itself is designed in a way that it's just really, really stiff. I have a feeling that this will protect the camera really, really, really well, which is awesome because 04 lights ain't cheap and that camera is not durable. So I think this is enough protection. Maybe I'm just old school and I just really do prefer to have the camera behind carbon fiber, behind standoffs. Also, carbon fiber is a lot lighter than TPU. And so a big chunk of TPU on the front like this is almost certainly going to throw the CG forward. You can then hopefully keep the battery back as far as possible to offset that CG. But what you've then done is you've really spaced the weight out on the pitch axis. And now you've got to run significantly more PID gains on the pitch axis than the roll axis. It's always a better bet if you can if you can keep the weight as centralized as possible. If you want an example of this, spin around in your desk chair with your arms out and then pull your arms in. You will spin faster with your arms pulled in. With your arms pulled in, with the weight pulled in, the motors are going to have to do less work. There's gonna be more authority on that pitch axis. It's gonna be more balanced on the pitch axis versus the roll axis. That is like sort of made even worse by the fact that these are all squished X frames. So on the pitch axis, the motors are closer together than on the roll axis, and so there is a mechanical disadvantage on the pitch axis. And then we've also got more weight spread out on the pitch axis. So, you know, we're getting in the weeds, but like all these little things kind of stack up to potentially make a difference. I don't know. I mean, these are awful lightweight, and we're using motors that are pretty damn powerful. If you look at 5-inch rigs, we put a fucking GoPro, 120 gram GoPro all the way out on the nose, and they fly totally fine. So like, you know, if you're flying a bunch of 5-inch rigs and you want to build a micro that's going to be as close as possible to the 5-inch experience, you know, having a chunk of weight up on the nose like that is actually going to more closely resemble the 5-inch flight experience. You know, this setup with a little bit less weight here, a little bit lighter frame, or even best case scenario, this setup, this is going to be potentially going to be a better flying setup because we're just pushing less weight towards the front. That's going to allow us to not have to push the battery as far back, and so we're just going to have a more centralized mass. Again, splitting hairs, but we're comparing. I wanted to show you this amazing little GIF that Kayou has. Oh God, where is it? Where was it? That shows their different up tilts and how cool that front camera pod is. I really do like the front camera pod. As worried as I am, there it is. As worried as I am that front camera pod is putting a little bit too much weight on the nose. It's really well designed, and it's super cool. They've got tons of different 3D print files for all different up tilts, and you can see the top plate moving up and down here. They provide you standoffs for like 8mm, I think it is, for a single stack, and then I think it's 12mm for a double stack. The Baby Turtle frames have they come with 15mm standoffs. I'm a little bit worried that the 12mm standoffs that the Kayou comes with are going to be not quite tall enough, because on the double stack build that I did here in the Baby Turtle 2-inch, I used up every millimeter of the 15mm standoffs here. In fairness, I did do this build with motor plugs, and that takes up a little bit of space there, and I did space it a little bit more off the bottom plate that I probably needed to, but I am like out of space on these 15mm. Let me make sure they're 15mm. Hold on. Pretty sure they are, but let me just double check here. Yep, they're 15. So yeah, I would rather have seen the Kayou come with 15s. In the kit that Christian sent me, though, there was a bag of 15. So I'm not sure, but the front camera piece is designed to be used with 12mm. So what I can tell you about the Kayou frame is you're going to be direct soldering the motors to the AIO. I don't know any way other than running 15mm standoffs, which you could do. It would just put this top plate up a little bit higher. But with the provided 12mm, you're going to be direct soldering the motors, and you're going to slam the AIO down on the deck. And so this has the potential to be a little bit more of a challenging build. These are all pretty challenging builds, to be honest. Everything is just so itty-bitty. Hopefully you've watched that one of my live streams. I've done a few on soldering tips, because you're going to have to be on your game for these. We're talking tiny little pads, tiny little wires. So, yeah. You'll feel a good sense of accomplishment when you're done with the builds, for sure. 3D printed parts, awesome on both. I don't know if I have a favorite. The Kayoumini 3D printed parts are definitely more chunky and more durable. The Baby Turtle parts are a little bit slimmer, a little bit lighter. They're all really well designed, and they both have like tons of options for the 3D printed parts for tons of different cameras and different antennas and different size batteries. Really, really impressive. The selection of 3D printed parts. Maxx as well, his comes with a bunch of 3D printed stuff, but yeah, really good job. All these guys have done a phenomenal job designing these 3D printed parts to make these things easy to live with. On bigger stuff, I tend to shy away from 3D printed parts. But on these little ones, like they're so fiddly, like getting the battery in there and like getting the antenna mounted. It is so fiddly that I'm actually using like all of the 3D printed stuff on these. But these guys have all designed them to be fairly small and lightweight, so it's not much of a weight penalty. Also, on these things, like I've added a bunch of weight to them, and they fly even better because they get more momentum and more throw. We've got motors and propellers that are strong enough. So yeah, I can't choose. If I had to pick between the Kayoumini and the baby turtles, I couldn't. I mean, I haven't built the damn things and crashed them yet, so sure. But like, I don't think I'm gonna notice a difference. I'll probably notice a difference that the Kayoumini is a little bit heavier weight, but I might actually like that extra weight. Like I said before, I tend to prefer a lighter weight frame, and then if I want it to be heavier, I put a bigger battery on. And that gives me more runtime as well as the extra mass for the extra throw, right? But no wrong answers. Oh, the Bando Turtle camera mount locks into the bottom plate in a similar kind of fashion here. And so it holds itself down to the bottom plate really, really well. It's just that it's not as beefy of a chunk of TPU. And so I'm a little worried that I'm going to destroy my O3 Lite camera. We'll see. We'll see once I get it built and start smashing it into stuff. The Kayoumini is sometimes hard to find in stock. I think right now it is in stock on Pyrodrone. I'm really impressed with it. There's the website is awesome. The frame design is really cool. I think I would like to see some cutouts here in the areas that typically don't have any real stress going through them, so that it was a little bit lighter, and then we could spend that little bit of weight savings on a bigger battery. I don't know. Maybe I'll find that these are too light, and I like this one most because of the extra carbon, because of the extra weight that gives me. Sometimes on these little builds, you can't put a bigger battery. Like the top plates are so small that a lot of times like a 2S 450 or 420 or 380 is as big as you can put on here. So maybe that extra carbon will actually make me prefer it to the lighter weight baby turtles. You can get these guys in awesome, cool colored carbon, which I'm totally a nerd with. I'm really excited for this to be the Teenage Mutant Baby Turtle. I got it in the green, and then I printed out the 3D printed stuff in blue for Leonardo, and red for Raph, and purple for Donatello, and then the next time I have the orange on the 3D printer, I'm going to print out orange for Michelangelo. It's just me being a fucking, 80s kid, 90s kid. But yeah, the colored carbon fiber is very, very fun on these guys. I don't think you can go wrong with either. None of them are all that expensive either, so, get them both, test them for yourself. I'm really impressed, though. I'm really impressed by all of them, to be honest. Super, super, super looking forward to seeing if the 2.5-inch props are going to be a little bit too much, and if these are not going to be heavy enough for that size of propeller. That's the thing that I'm worried about with these 2.5-inch builds. I've been really impressed by these 2-inch setups. Their ability to carry the HD system, analog, and do a really good job. I have a feeling, though, that the Flywoo wide-angle camera would be too heavy for these baby turtle builds. Also, I don't know of any mounting solutions for that camera on these baby turtle setups. I have a feeling that right now, today, the Kayoumini is the only option for carrying that Flywoo wide-angle camera. That being said, I don't personally have a problem with the regular 04 Lite camera. Does it have less field of view? For sure. Do I get used to it in about 14 seconds? Absolutely. And like with it being more zoomed in, there is more of a sense of speed, and it doesn't have that crazy wide fish angle, fisheye rather. It's a very linear camera, which looks really good. That's what cinema cameras are. And so I don't have a problem with the 04 Lite. Some people act like it's the absolute worst thing that's ever happened to FPV, that it has less field of view. I don't know. I have a feeling that those people are are being a little dramatic, and you know, some of the reviewers don't help with that, putting out clickbaity thumbnails, you know, saying "Ooh!" So yeah, I don't know. I gotta wrap this up though. It's 5:15. I gotta go teach a bunch of people how to modern swing dance. Let me try to get a little bit caught up on chat here though. Hopefully I gave you enough information. It's hard for me to really dig into these 2.5-inch builds because I haven't built them yet, but that is coming. I wanted to do this while I had the frames not built so that I could weigh them, so that I could more easily like take them like this and bend them and just sort of, you know, talk about the 3D printed stuff and whatnot. So yeah, more coming soon. Like I said, I don't think you can go wrong with either one of these. Anybody that's saying like, oh, the Kayoumini is the better frame or the Baby Turtle is the better frame, don't listen to them. They're different, right? There's not better, there's different. And there are significant differences between these. And to say that the Kayoumini is better, that's silly, because there's going to be someone that doesn't want a frame that's this heavy. And this is absolutely not better for that person, right? And so, yeah, when you hear people like bashing on other stuff or just flat out saying like, oh, such and such is the best frame, like those are the people that you don't want to listen to, in my opinion. So careful with that. But I think you're gonna love any one of these frames that you get. I'm super impressed by them. Really, really, really well done. Maxx sub 250G FPV, Kayou, amazing job. Really, really, really cool that we have such awesome options in builds that work incredibly well with the 04 light, with Walk Snail, with these new digital video systems that give us ridiculously good image quality and DVR, both on board and on our goggles. And we can go out and fly these things in like really sketchy spots that we could I mean, we do, but we shouldn't be flying 5-inch rigs. You know, we only do it on holidays and stuff when there's nobody around. But like, you know, to be able to go on like a regular, any old Saturday and absolutely rail up and down a 100-story building in downtown Atlanta without being worried about hurting someone or sending it through somebody's car windshield or getting thrown in jail, that is just the coolest thing ever. And so we're very, very, very lucky to have these options available. So thank you to the frame designers that have spent an ungodly amount of time on these things, because it is very difficult. Again, this purple is Sunlu. Oh, for Christ's sakes. YouTube zoom me to the bottom again. Sunlu Burgundy Silk. And he did confirm that it is TPU. I think that it's different durometer. I forget if it's when durometer goes up or down that it becomes more stiff, but this TPU, this Sunlu Burgundy Silk, seems to be a stiffer durometer than Sane Smart. So if you want that, there you go. Sunlu Silk. I'm gonna get a roll. I'm gonna get a roll of Sunlu Silk because this is pretty cool. In order for me to remember to do that, I have to open up a tab. Sunlu TPU. SUNLU. Yeah, good enough. All right, that'll work. Thank you again, Christian, for sending this over and all the 3D prints. Very, very kind of you. Capital C also says, did you check out the braided shrink wrap I sent you with the frame? I wondered what that was. It's like all the way put away, but there are going to be more live streams specifically surrounding this, and I'll dive into all the stuff that you sent me there. Capital C says, so I made the battery loops at 5%, then 10% larger when I printed. Then you can slide them both to the front and then slide the larger one to the back to lock it in. Loads battery quicker. That is cool. I wondered why there were 4 of them. I held them all next to each other, and they look to be the same thing, so I just randomly grabbed 2. But now I know that I was doing that on the coffee table while I was watching something with Maggie. So now I'll take a closer look. That's super slick. It's a great idea. He also says Sunlu Silk seems more dense than the Sane Smart, even though they're both technically 95A. Yeah, Printed the Kayoumini stuff in both types of filament. Some little silk is noticeably harder. There we go. So, look, a lack of standardization is not just in FPV. It's in the 3D printing world as well. Frank Nicholas says, Mads Tech's current live stream is discussing Olympic FPV quad use. He has pictures and info about the quads being used, matching what you described. Very cool. Capital C says, I prefer the heavier Kayoumini to the Baby Turtle. Also, I've destroyed more motors and arms on the Baby Turtles. There you go. There's some feedback from somebody flying both. Capital C also says, don't get me wrong, though. I love flying the Baby Turtles. Some days it's a tough call which one I prefer. Levster says, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, yeah. And I'm all caught up. Thanks for hanging, friends. Tomorrow night, I have no idea what we'll do, but 10 o'clock Eastern time, we'll do something else fun tomorrow. If the AIO for the Maxx Frames M2 shows up, we'll get this build started. Maybe finish the build tomorrow night. Or maybe we will pull this one up, pull the 2-inch version of this apart, and drop it into the 2.5-inch setup. Maybe we'll do that. I'll figure it out tomorrow. Thanks for hanging, friends. Thanks for supporting me so that I can continue to do this full time. CiottiFPV.com is where you go to be a part of that. Yeah, join the Gangly Gang, my friends, and we can test more stuff and keep building cool shit. Traub with the last comment on live stream, he says, what time is it right now for you so I can convert what time that will be for me? It is 5:21 p.m. for me right now. But just go to Google and type such and such Eastern and it'll immediately convert it for you. That's what I do. Be good, friends. Here's some more flying from yesterday. I don't even know what this is. What am I flying? Well, no. Here's more of flying the analog 2-inch Baby Turtle V7. I didn't finish the flight file that we started at the beginning of the live stream. Yeah, here you go. Be good, friends. Again, this is GemFan 2015. T-Motor 1002, 18,000s, motor limited down to 75%, Baby Turtle V7, BT 3.0, 300 mAh 2S batteries, Caddx Ant camera, Happy Model X12 AIO. See you guys tomorrow night.
Yeah. Out in the yard where the grass grows wild, CiottiFPV's goggles locked, grinning like a child. Teddy spaghetti's, fur flies, and jet wash dreams. Yeah. Chasing small whoops like a dog possessed fiend. Eyes on a neon blur, hard in the chase. Bit fuzz and prop spin, all tangled in place. Yeah. Four-legged rebel with a roadster tail in the circus of the sky. They never fail. CiottiFPV, Teddy Spaghetti, dynamic duo kings, barking at the breeze, throttling at top speed. They zooming through hoops, flipping in style. That schnauzer's got throttle and a toothy smile. Yeah. Ciotti's on sticks, Teddy's on paws. Side by side, legends breaking all the laws. Through the kitchen, over couch scale terrain. Backyard mayhem in their flight domain. No ground too sacred, no loop too tight. Fuzz, fuel, fury ignites the night. When pilot and pup lock eyes on the prize, every whoop they conquer is a fresh cut surprise. Yeah. Yo, Ciotti behind the sticks, Teddy's leading the pack. Prop guard missiles unleashed, never looking back. No leash, no map, just freestyle Mike. They on the dog drone streets every day and night. Said whoops, hitting low, gotta nail the dive. Teddy push throttle up, feel the beast come alive. I see the neon arc, got the sticks locked in, Teddy. Yeah, let's rip this loop, ride the roar of the wind, Teddy. Yep. Yeah, CiottiFPV, Teddy Spaghetti, diamond and duo king. Shoulders got throttle and a toothy smile. Teddy Sparky, Teddy and Duo Kings barking at the breeze. Rolling at top speed things, zooming through hoops, flipping in style. That schnauzer's got throttle and a toothy smile. Yeah, when you hear that bar cut the rotor hum, you know Ciotti and Teddy's mission's just begun. FPVs, fur-faced legends, legends singing loud. Yeah, Teddy, Spaghetti, and CiottiFPV always